Some houses creak because they're old. Some houses groan because they remember. But this house hides a door no one was meant to open. And when he did, he didn't find a room. He found a place that isn't supposed to exist. A place that watches and waits. And once it lets you in, it never lets you leave. This is a story about a man who found something behind the walls of his own home. And he shouldn't have gone through it. It started with the smell. Faint at first, like damp stone and rust. But it hung there, just outside the basement door, like it was waiting for me to notice. I figured it was just mildew or old pipes. The house was ancient, after all. My grandfather's crumbling farmhouse, buried deep in the woods and left untouched for years. When he died, it sat vacant until I moved in. I guess I thought a change of scenery would help clear my head. Fresh air. Quiet. No reminders of the divorce. No memories of the apartment we shared, or the life we'd almost built. But the quiet here was wrong. Too deep. Too still. No neighbors. No traffic. No cell service unless I walked out toward the edge of the gravel road and held my phone to the sky. Just woods and silence and that smell. It didn't hit all at once. More like a gradual thing. I'd be walking through the hallway near the stairs and catch the faintest whiff of it. Damp earth. Blood. Old stone. It made me think of root cellars and iron and something else. Something I couldn't place. The basement door was locked. Had been since I arrived. Heavy wood, warped with age, with a deadbolt that looked fused shut from years of disuse. The realtor had brushed it off. Old man didn't want anyone down there, she told me with a half laugh. We didn't even have a key, probably full of mold and broken furniture. I wouldn't mess with it. I didn't. Not at first. I was too busy trying to scrape my life back together. Unpacking, cleaning, drinking too much. Some nights I'd just sit on the front porch with a beer and stare at the woods. It was August, but the air already had a bite. The trees out here didn't move right. Sometimes they didn't move at all. Even when the wind blew, even when I could hear the leaves rustling above me, some of them stayed perfectly still, like they were watching. I didn't sleep well. The first week I dreamed of her almost every night. Anna, my ex. Dreams where we were back in our old apartment, except the walls were rotting and she wouldn't look at me. She'd just stand in the kitchen with her back turned, breathing too loud. Then the dreams changed. By the end of that week, I was dreaming of the basement door. In the dream, I'd walk down the hallway, barefoot on the cold floorboards, and the door would be wide open, yawning black. Something moved inside, slow and soft, like it was breathing. I'd hear my name, not spoken, just known. I'd wake up soaked in sweat, heart pounding, throat dry, and then, during the day, I'd catch that smell again. Stronger now. By the 10th day, it wasn't just in the hallway. It drifted into the kitchen, the living room. It curled through the vents like steam. I checked the crawl space, the attic. Thought maybe something had died in the walls. A raccoon, maybe. A possum. But everything was clean. I didn't want to think about the basement. Didn't want to admit how the air felt thicker near the door. Didn't want to acknowledge how the hallway lights flickered whenever I got too close. Still, I found myself drawn to it. Some nights I'd just stand there, one hand on the doorknob, forehead resting against the wood, listening. There was something on the other side. Not a sound exactly. Not footsteps or voices. Just a pressure. Like the air was different. Denser. Hungrier. Then I started hearing it while I was awake. Not always. Just sometimes. When I was in bed, half asleep, drifting, there'd be this soft scraping sound from below the floor, like nails on stone, or bones being dragged. The first time it happened, I sat bolt upright, listened for over an hour. Nothing. Then, the next night, I heard it again, closer. On the 12th day, I broke the lock. I don't know what pushed me over the edge. Maybe the dreams, maybe the stink, Maybe the fact that I woke up with mud on my feet, even though I hadn't left the house. But that morning I went to the shed out back, grabbed a crowbar, and started prying the basement door open. The wood splintered easily. The lock gave way with a crunch that felt wrong. Like I'd broken something that was never supposed to be opened. Behind the door, a steep wooden staircase swallowed in black. No light switch, no railing. Just steps that looked hand-carved and uneven, covered in dust. And that smell. Jesus, it was thick now. Alive. It crawled down my throat and sat in my stomach like a stone. I stood there for a long time, staring into the dark. Something about it made my skin crawl. The air coming up from below wasn't just cold. It felt wet. I should have shut the door. Should have nailed it back up. Burned it. Something. Instead, I grabbed a flashlight and went down. The stairs groaned under my weight, loud and slow. The beam from the flashlight barely touched the walls. Everything down there seemed to eat the light. I moved slowly, one step at a time, breathing through my mouth. I don't know how far down it went. Farther than it should have. Way farther. This house didn't have a basement on the plans. At least not this deep. I counted 36 steps before I hit the bottom. Maybe more. By then the air was thick with rot and moisture, and I could hear a faint dripping sound somewhere in the dark. I shined the light around. Stone walls, cracked and damp. No pipes, no furniture. Just an open space, maybe 20 feet wide. The floor was concrete, but parts of it looked uneven, like it had been patched or dug up and poured again. In the far wall, almost hidden behind a hanging tarp of plastic, was another door. Not wood, not metal. Something else. It was smooth and gray with no hinges, no knob, just a faint seam running around its edges, like a vault or a sealed tomb. I took a step toward it and the light flickered. Then I heard it. A voice, distant and ragged, whispering behind the door. It said my name. It said my name. Not loudly. Not even like a whisper. More like a thought, shaped with breath, leaking through the seam of that strange gray door. I stood there in the dark for I don't know how long, the flashlight trembling in my hand, beam jittering across the cracked stone walls. I should have gone back upstairs. I should have shut the basement and boarded it up. But I didn't. Instead, I reached out and touched the door. It was cold. Much colder than the air around it. The surface felt like glass or stone, but too smooth, wrongly smooth. No grain, no texture, like it had been poured out of some alien mold. As soon as my fingers brushed it, I heard the sound again, clearer this time. My name, yes, but beneath it, something else. A whispering chorus. Voices overlapping, speaking backwards, some too deep, others too thin and high. They weren't outside the door anymore. They were inside my head. I yanked my hand away. I backed up, shaking, heart hammering, flashlight clutched like a weapon. The door didn't move. It just stood there, mute and heavy and sealed. But the moment I turned to leave, I noticed something strange about the walls. They were pulsing, not visibly, but I felt it. Like the stone was breathing, slow and deep, exhaling that stink of iron and soil. I climbed the stairs faster than I meant to, 2 at a time. Every creak of wood beneath me sounded like a footstep behind me. When I burst through the basement door and slammed it shut, it was like breaching the surface of a black ocean. The air upstairs felt thin and bright, but the smell followed me. Weaker, but still there, like the taste of copper in my mouth. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the door, heard the whispers, and behind it all, I kept picturing something. Waiting, not moving, just watching. A mass, a shape that didn't make sense. I couldn't remember its form when I opened my eyes, but my body remembered. My hands shook for hours. I kept checking my skin, expecting to find bruises or cuts, but it was all inside. The next morning, I tried to pretend it hadn't happened. I stayed upstairs, cleaned, read, did everything I could to avoid walking past the basement. But the house had changed. Not in a physical way, nothing obvious, but the feel of it. The air pressure was wrong. The shadows were thicker, longer. Things creaked that had never creaked before. When I'd turn off lights, I'd see shapes move just at the edge of the dark. I started hearing footsteps at night. They didn't come from upstairs. They came from below. Slow, rhythmic, too heavy for one person, like several sets of feet walking just beneath the floorboards. Sometimes, they'd stop directly beneath my bed. On the 15th day, I woke up with dirt under my fingernails. That part terrified me more than anything. It was packed in deep, muddy and dark, like I'd been digging. My sheets were clean. The door was still shut, but when I checked the soles of my feet, they were caked in that same reddish-black muck. I took a shower and tried to scrub it off. It left my skin raw. I couldn't focus, couldn't eat. The whispers were still there, faint but insistent, like a radio tuned between stations. I started writing them down, compulsively, trying to make sense of them. Most of it looked like nonsense, just slashes and spirals and repeated words. Beneath hollow, remember the skin forgets. I didn't remember writing that last one. 2 days later, the basement door was open again. I didn't open it. I know I didn't. I hadn't gone near it. I'd wedged a chair under the knob, but when I walked past the hallway that morning, the chair was tipped over and the door was wide open. Pitch black stairs yawning down into silence. I should have run, but instead, I stood there, staring into the dark, and something moved at the bottom of the stairs, just out of sight, just long enough for my brain to register motion. I called out, "Hello?" No answer. The air smelled stronger now, like rot and salt and something older than both. My skin tingled. My hands moved without me, lifting the flashlight again. I went back down. The basement was larger. I swear to God it had grown. What used to be a 20-foot chamber was now double that. The walls were still stone, but wet now, slick with condensation or something thicker. The floor was warped. Not like concrete anymore. It felt softer under my boots. Not spongy, but loose. Like the ground beneath me wasn't solid. And the gray door was open. I don't know how it opened. There were no hinges, no handles. It was just not there anymore. A smooth opening in the stone, leading into a hallway I hadn't seen before. I should have gone back up, but I didn't. I walked through. The hallway was narrow, barely wider than my shoulders. The walls were made of the same impossible material as the door, smooth and wrong, almost like wet bone. My flashlight barely penetrated the dark. The beam flickered, and every time it did, the shadows seemed to shift. The whispers were louder here. Still not words, still not sound. But I could feel them crawling along the inside of my skull. I walked for what felt like hours. There were no turns, no doors, just a long downward slope, deeper and deeper into the earth, or something that felt like earth. But the air was wrong. It didn't taste like dirt. It tasted like memories, like wet wood, like old screams swallowed by silence. Then I came to the room. It was circular, massive. The ceiling was lost in shadow. In the center of the room stood a pillar made of flesh and stone, like something had tried to grow out of both but failed. It pulsed slowly, like a heart, and wrapped around it, nailed into the floor, were faces, hundreds of them, human, preserved, eyes wide open. Some were mouthing silent words, others wept blood. They were alive. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. Every hair on my body stood up, and I felt this wave of recognition. I knew one of the faces. It was my grandfather. His face was stitched to the pillar, his eyes glassy, his mouth moving soundlessly, saying the same thing over and over. Not a door. Then the floor beneath me shifted. Something cracked open below. A hand, long and pale and slick with something black, reached up from the stone and brushed my ankle. I bolted. I ran back up the hall, flashlight bouncing. The whispers screamed now, louder than ever, almost words, but not quite. My heart hammered so loud I thought it would stop. Somehow I made it back to the stairs. I slammed the basement door and nailed it shut from the outside. Every board I could find, every screw. I dragged furniture in front of it, sealed it tight, but I know it doesn't matter, because now the door isn't down there anymore. It's moving, It's not in the basement anymore. That's the first thing I realized when I woke up and the door was in my bedroom wall. I didn't hear it arrive, didn't hear footsteps or dragging or anything like that. Just opened my eyes and there it was, smooth and gray, set perfectly into the wall across from my bed like it had always belonged there. No seams, no damage, no sign the house had been altered. Just the door. Silent. Waiting. It didn't open. It just was. I stayed in bed for hours, barely breathing. I couldn't look away. The surface of the door wasn't still. There were faint ripples beneath it, like water trembling under glass, like something shifting on the other side, slowly, patiently. I told myself I was dreaming, that I never left the basement, that I was passed out on the floor somewhere hallucinating. But that didn't feel right. Everything else was too real. Eventually, I stood up and approached it. The closer I got, the colder the air became. My breath fogged in front of my face, and the walls started to hum. A soft, low vibration, like an animal growling just out of sight. I placed my palm against the surface. It didn't feel solid anymore. It pulsed beneath my touch, almost imperceptibly, like it was alive. The second I made contact, I heard a sound behind me. A click. I turned, too fast, and nearly collapsed. The bedroom door was gone. Not closed, gone. Replaced by blank wall. I stumbled backward. My heart stuttered. There were no windows, no exits. Just me, the cold, and the thing in the wall. That's when the lights went out. I don't know how long I was in that darkness. The door didn't move, neither did I. The cold got worse. I could see my breath. My teeth chattered so violently my jaw ached. And then, slowly, the wall opposite the gray door began to change. It softened, warped, and something pushed through. A shape. Human, maybe. But too tall. Too thin. Its arms hung too low and its head was tilted at a wrong, breaking angle. It didn't walk. It unfolded from the wall like a shadow learning how to move. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My body locked up. It stepped forward, not touching the ground, hovering just slightly above it, like gravity had forgotten it. Its face was a void, a blank smear of skin. No eyes, no mouth. But I felt it looking at me. It reached out, and before it could touch me, the door opened. I don't remember going through it. I remember falling. I remember the cold vanishing, replaced by heat so thick it hurt to breathe. I remember light, too much of it. Not bright like the sun, but oppressive, wet light, and sound. Not noise, sound, like listening to an orchestra tuned to a dead frequency. I landed on something soft, not dirt, not floor, just texture. It gave under my weight like flesh. I sat up, coughing. My clothes were damp. Around me, the world was wrong. There was no sky. Above me stretched an endless ceiling of bone-like arches, throbbing with slow veins of amber light. The ground was covered in a black moss that shimmered like oil. Towers rose in the distance, huge spires made of interlocking teeth and rusted steel. The air smelled like sweet rot and burnt hair. And there were others. Not people. Not really. Shapes. Crawling. Shuffling. Some upright. Some fused together. I watched one creature drag itself across the moss on a mass of knotted arms. Its face split into 4 separate mouths that gnashed wetly at nothing. Another hung from a stalk of bone, twitching, weeping in a language that hurt my ears. They didn't see me, or they didn't care. I was nothing to them, just another thing that had fallen through. I stood, trembling, and started walking toward the spires. They were the only landmark, the only thing that looked intentional. The ground pulsed beneath me. Every step I took sent little echoes through the moss, like something was listening. As I walked, I passed structures that looked like houses, only wrong. Upside-down doors, windows that opened into voids, roofs made of skin stretched too tight. One house had a figure sitting on the porch, a man with no eyes and 1,000 tiny mouths dotting his arms and neck. He was humming to himself. He waved at me, I ran. I don't know how long I wandered. Time didn't move here like it did before. My watch stopped. My phone was dead. Hunger came and went without pain. Sleep was like blinking. There were no stars, no days. Just the endless hum of this place and the occasional sound of weeping. I found a mirror once, half buried in the moss. When I looked in it, I didn't see myself. I saw a version of me. Eyes dark, skin pale, smiling too wide. It raised its hand before I did, and then it spoke. Don't trust the doors. Then the glass shattered. Eventually I reached one of the spires. It wasn't made of stone. Up close I could see the texture was more like bone and teeth than something else, like it had grown rather than been built. Inside was a spiral staircase that led down, deeper, of course. I went down. What I found below wasn't a room. It wasn't even a space. It was a memory, but not mine. I walked through a kitchen I didn't recognize, filled with the scent of burnt toast and baby powder. There was a woman at the counter, back turned, humming to herself. She turned. It was Anna, my ex-wife. Except, it wasn't. Her eyes were wrong. Her mouth kept opening and closing like she was chewing something that didn't exist. She spoke, but her voice was mine. I left the door open, Caleb. Why didn't you close it? I backed away. She kept walking toward me. You knew what was behind it. You always did. The walls around us began to bend, peel away. The kitchen collapsed like paper, revealing the gray void underneath. I fell again. This time, I landed in a hospital room. My grandfather was on the bed, tubes in his arms, eyes vacant. I stepped closer. He blinked. You let it in, he said calmly. You made a hole in the house. Then his chest opened, not with blood, with light. A shaft of bright, pulsing light that poured out like a spotlight, and from it came hands, dozens of them, reaching. I screamed and ran, through the door, back into the black. I don't know how many times I crossed over. Each door led to another version of not home. The rules changed constantly. In one world, gravity didn't work. In another, sound bled from the walls and turned my teeth to dust. My memories were leaking. Names stopped making sense. Time unraveled. I started hearing a heartbeat that wasn't mine, louder every day, and the whispers were growing clearer. They weren't random anymore. They were instructions. Dig. Remember. Bleed. Follow the hum. Make yourself hollow. I think the house is gone now. I don't remember what the real one looked like. My mind holds a dozen layouts. Hallways that shouldn't connect. Stairs that spiral forever. Rooms full of mirrors that show nothing. But I know the door is still with me. Always. It appears now wherever I stop. I sleep in shadows. I eat things that don't rot. And every day I see more of them. People like me. Or what's left of them. Eyes empty. Mouths stitched with wire. Walking the endless moss in search of home. I don't know how long it's been. Days? Months? I don't think time lives here anymore. When I try to remember my old life, it feels like someone else's dream. I can picture Anna's face sometimes, but it melts if I focus too hard. My grandfather's voice comes to me in loops, always whispering the same thing. Not a door, not a door, not a door. But that's the lie, isn't it? It was a door, a perfect door, too perfect, so perfect it didn't just open, it invited, and I walked through, willingly. The place I'm in now isn't a world. It's more like the inside of something. The ground is soft and veined, breathing. Sometimes it sighs when I step wrong. The sky, or whatever is above, shifts in colors I can't name. No stars, just dim, pulsing things in the distance that watch. And the shapes here, some crawl, some walk, some hover. Others don't move at all, just tremble in place like they're afraid to breathe. I don't think they're alive in the way I understand life. I don't think I am either. Sometimes I look at my hands and see bones. Sometimes they're covered in tight gray skin. Once I had no hands at all, just stumps that wept light. It changes, like the place is rewriting me, or like I'm being interpreted differently every day by something that doesn't quite understand what a person is supposed to look like. The whispers are constant now, but they aren't external anymore. They live in me, curl around my thoughts, finish my sentences before I speak them. When I sleep, if it's sleep, I dream in their language. Not words, not pictures, just textures and smells, heat and cold. That's how they speak here. And I'm starting to understand. There's something beneath everything. A presence, enormous, ancient, unmoving. I haven't seen it, but I've felt it. Like the hum beneath the world is its breath. Every pulse of the ground is a slow, patient heartbeat. Sometimes I catch glimpses and reflections, brief flashes of something vast, coiled in the spaces between walls and shadows. Not alive, not dead, something in between. It doesn't need to move. It dreams. And in those dreams, doors. Endless doors. Some people find them in closets, others in mirrors, basements, mouths, scars. Doesn't matter. They all open to this place, a membrane, a fold in the skin of reality. We are inside its thoughts. I met a man with no mouth who drew pictures in the air with blood. He had thousands of symbols carved into his chest. When I looked at them, I forgot my name for 3 days. Another creature, a woman-shaped thing with hundreds of eyes, sang to me in tones that made my bones rattle. She told me I was close. To what? She didn't say. She placed a finger to my forehead and whispered, "Once you remember your shape, you can become useful." I asked what that meant. She laughed. Or maybe she screamed. The sound bent the ground. The worst was the library. Not books, not shelves. Just endless corridors of flesh and teeth and skin-bound objects. I passed a mirror that showed me a version of myself eating my own hands, smiling. A chair whispered secrets about my grandfather that made me vomit black thread for hours. At the center of the library was a staircase that spun upward into a hole in the ceiling. I climbed it. Each step peeled something off of me. Memories, feelings, names. By the time I reached the top, I didn't know why I had come. But something waited there, sitting, patient. Not a figure, not a god, a mass, shifting, stinking of salt and time. It had mouths, too many, and in each mouth, a different version of me. I stared. It stared back. Then I heard the voice, not from the mouths, but from the air. "You opened it. That makes you a door now." Then it smiled, with all of my faces. And I woke up in the farmhouse again. But it's not really the farmhouse. It looks like it, smells like it, sounds like it. But I know better now. There are seams in the air. The walls breathe if you watch long enough. The mirror in the bathroom doesn't reflect right. It shows rooms I haven't seen yet. Sometimes it shows my grandfather, whispering through stitched lips. Sometimes it shows Anna, peeling her skin back with a calm smile. I try not to look anymore. But the worst part? I can hear them now. On the other side of the walls, the ones still in the real world. I hear someone walking upstairs, crying, screaming, asking for help. They found a door too, somewhere. And now it's my voice they hear, calling to them through the seams. I try to stop, but my mouth moves on its own. Come see what's behind it. It's only a door. It's only a door. It's only... The house is full of doors now. Every room, every wall, every thought. I don't live in the house anymore. I am the house. I am the door. And I'm open. This is the end of the story. Hope you liked it. If you did, please subscribe and like it. Write it in the comments what you would have you had done differently. So yeah, that's it. Sees you soon, and have a scary night.